So, of all the different versions of the Kershaw Funxion, I'd have to say in retrospect, I'm probably going to be more attracted to the EMT version. Hello my friends, Lay Boy Scout here with my review of the Kershaw Funxion series. In hand right now is the DIY version. We're going to set that aside briefly and talk about what's here in the tin. What we've got here is actually the outdoor version in a nice little presentation case with a little Kershaw fire starter and just a really cool little tin, as I mentioned. You can get this at Blade HQ right now for just a couple dollars more than the price of the knife alone. So if you're thinking about buying the Funxion Outdoor, I highly encourage you to pick up the tin with the fire starter. Tins are kind of cool. They're collectible, fun to store stuff in. And, you know, a fire starter is always nice to have. So let's talk about some of these knives. We'll get that tin off the table for now. I just wanted to talk about that briefly. The Kershaw Funxion series. I was pretty intrigued when I saw that Kershaw was coming out with a knife that is multifunction. You know, something like a Leatherman. You all know that I'm extremely fond of my Leatherman tools. Let's see, what have I got nearby? Well, how about this one? Here's the or it's not the Kershaw. I know what the Kershaw is. This is the Juice XE6 by Leatherman. It's a new acquisition here. Yeah, I mean, Leatherman does it right when it comes to multi-tools. They just do. So I was pretty intrigued to see what kind of multi-tool or, you know, multi-function knife Kershaw might come out with. And would it be any good? Would it compare in the least bit favorably against a Leatherman tool? Well, let's get into it and see. So what they did here, instead of coming out with one knife that's got lots and lots of functions on it, kind of like any Leatherman tool is, they came out with a handful of knives that you could choose from, each of which have different functions on them. So the outdoor one was the most interesting to me, not just because it came in the cool tin, but also because I like outdoor stuff. So that's the one I went for and made my testing bed. And yes, I have cut and done a lot of testing with this knife, rolling in some footage showing that. It started off razor sharp, and that's pretty much how it came out of the box or out of the tin. And then I proceeded to put it up against, you know, paper, paracord, cardboard, you know, some of the usual stuff. The stuff that we most often run into in our EDC cutting tasks. But then I wanted to push it a little further, so I put it up against a little bit of wood, a little bit of pine, and some other branches just fell off some trees nearby. I think they might have been maple or something like that, or a variation of maple. Did a little carving with that just to see how the knife felt in hand, and also to see how the edge retained. In hand, it's not bad. You know, it's a folding knife, so it's going to have some of the hot spots that, you know, a fixed blade knife would not. Not too bad, you know, but not as nice as something that's dedicated and made for carving, as fixed blade knives generally are. But the knife did okay, and the main thing I want to point out is that the 8CR13 MOV steel, I already knew that it was not an ideal outdoor steel, and through that testing I realized that yes, in fact, it does lack some edge retention capabilities. It gets dull, not super fast, but it gets dull. All right, any steel will, but 8CR13 MOV does so a little too fast for me, for my taste, for my liking. It is a nice strong knife though, but I have to admit that it did develop a little bit of play in that workout that I gave it. The side to side, you can actually even see right there. You can see that movement. So that's a little disappointing, and I could not get that back out. No matter how much I tighten this down, it just wouldn't go away again. So that's a little disappointing. Front to back, there might be some slight motion there as well. So that's worth noting. After a good workout, the knife did develop a little bit of play, and the steel did dull just a little bit. But what about some of the other functions of this multi-function knife? Well, because it's the outdoor version, it also comes with a saw. And I was anxious to see how that saw performed. It feels nice and sharp. You know, when you get your fingers on there, they kind of grab on, and you're thinking, yeah, that's going to be a really good saw.
Kind of hard to keep it in that.
Guess what? Not such an awesome saw. Not all that awesome. For notching, it'll do just fine. But if you want to cut all the way through a branch, expect it to get bound up a little bit, to bind up in that branch a little bit. And why? Why would it do that? Another thing I want to point out before I explain that is that it is a non-locking saw. Okay? It does have some spring retention, so if you push down on it like this, it won't get your fingers because there's a sort of a half stop in here built into it. But it does not lock open. It retains open, but it doesn't lock that way. So that's something to note. So why did it not perform as well as I thought it would? Well, it comes back to Leatherman and the way they do so well with their tools. Let's talk about the saws that they make briefly. Here is the saw on the XE6, the Juice XE6. And basically the reason why these saws work so well, the Leatherman saws work so well, is because of the counter grind that they do. What's a counter grind? Well, that's what I call it. I don't know if that's what they call it. But basically, they grind the blade down from the stock. They grind it this way, so it does a little bit of this first. They do that first to kind of thin it to where they want it to be. Then they put the teeth in it. And then they counter grind. And they come back this way again, meaning that the spine of that blade is actually thinner than the teeth edge, the toothed edge, whatever you want to call that. Why is that important? Because as that blade passes through material, the material doesn't touch the rest of the blade. Okay, the blade kind of slips through, the teeth guiding that blade all the way through, and that spine there just kind of following behind without ever touching the material that it's passing through. Meaning, less friction, no binding. Good job, Leatherman. Not such a hot job, Kershaw. You didn't do any sort of counter grind on that blade that I can detect. And the binding tells me, no, you probably didn't do it at all. All right, so not a perfect saw, but what else does it come with? Pretty much, it comes with a little carabiner. You might be able to use this as a bottle opener too, don't know. It's cool, you know, hang it off your stuff, your gear and stuff, and that's neat. But, you know, is there really any practical need or use for a carabiner? I don't know. I'm not so sure there is. But anyway, it came with it. Let's talk about the rest of the construction. I do like the fact that it's got this little bit of rubber up here that tends to grip your thumb and help you hold on to the knife. That's pretty nice. I do like that. Then, of course, the anodized aluminum is really nice looking. Really like it there, and on the opposite side, it's very nice. Very cool. And the outdoor one, of course, comes both in this olive green color as well as this sort of gray color right here. I can't remember what they call that. I'll annotate it. But it's kind of a gray color that also looks very, very nice. So you can get actually all three of these in, well, no, I think that you can only get this one and this one in different colors. This is the DIY version. It comes also in red in addition to the gray, and the outdoor comes in gray as well as this green. Also, I really like the pocket clip. Nice and deep. Yes, that is great. I love what Kershaw is doing with those deep carry wrapping over pocket clips. Good job. Nice flipper design for quick deployment. I like the blade shape quite a lot. I do love the nice sort of almost reverse Tonto tip that it's got there, meaning that it's going to have a lot of tip strength, and I tested that as well in a little bit of drilling. Yep, and it held up really, really well. No chance of that tip breaking off. It's going to be nice and strong for you. Again, the blade shape is great. Very utilitarian. Nice amount of belly there. Just a good blade shape overall. Ergonomically, it's great in hand. You got some nice jimping on top. And guess what? It is pretty nice and effective. It bites back when you lock your thumb in there. It's good jimping. It has thumb studs in addition to the flipper. Either way, works, whatever you choose. It's a little on the heavy side. It's probably 5+ ounces. Probably 5+ ounces for this. You know, the XE6 feels like it's right around the same range. Slightly heavier for the XE6. But this feels probably 5 to 6 ounces. So kind of on the heavy side. Is that okay? you know, considering that you get a bunch of other tools in there. I don't know, maybe you don't get quite enough for that weight. Not sure you do. Not sure if you do. We haven't talked about some of the other versions of the Funxion knife, so let's go ahead and go over those. So this right here is the EMT version of the Funxion, and this is the one that's probably second most attractive to me. So you do have the carabiner. This time it's blackened. And by the way, the carabiner does lock open, if I didn't mention that before. You've actually got a serrated blade on this one instead of that plain blade. And how are those serrations? Not bad, not bad. Reminiscent of Benchmade serrations, which I don't mind at all, actually. And of course that same blade shape, this one being coated in black. Pretty good looking, same ergonomics, very close to the same weight, if not exactly the same weight. And what do you get for additional functions besides the carabiner on this one? Well, basically a nice rescue blade. Well, hang on. Does that lock? I know that locks. There it is. Couldn't get that thing to lock for a second. Let's go ahead and close this one and look at the rescue blade. Now I like what they did with this rescue blade, actually. And you've actually got what looks like, I guess, a bottle opener or something there. And then some sort of a hex key right here as well. And I guess that would be a flathead right there as well. So you do have sort of multi-functions with this one piece. And that's cool. You get a little bit of jimping on top of that. So that's interesting, you know. A little bit of grip there and also right here. So the cutting that you're going to do, you know, is going to help you lock that into your thumb and get some hard cutting done with that rescue cutter. And they actually ground that down on both sides, which you don't see on a lot of rescue cutters. So kudos for that. You know, good job with that. I think maybe this is one of the most valuable and coolest versions of the Kershaw Funxion, this EMT version. So I don't know, if I were to choose again, decide which one that I actually wanted to keep for myself, it might have been this one over the outdoor one. I'm not so sure about that, but it does look pretty cool. And also, I didn't point out that it does have a glass breaker on the top right there, and that is going to be very, very useful. And lastly, we've got the DIY version of the Funxion, which is probably also going to be a pretty good one for you. Same steel. All three of these have that 8CR13 MOV steel. Same deployment. Construction is very much the same. We do have a different set of functionality going on here. Of course, they all come with the carabiner, and that is locking. And then, of course, on the DIY, we have this sort of multi-function tool right here. So you've got a little bit of a hex bit turner right here. You've got your basically bottle opener there, and you've got a screwdriver. Okay, so a little limited. Relatively fast deployment, just like the other ones, and about the same weight as the other ones. So, of all the different versions of the Kershaw Funxion, I'd have to say, in retrospect, I'm probably going to be more attracted to the EMT version. So, for the functions that you want on a everyday carry knife that could also have multi-function abilities, I think you're probably going to want to go with something like this that's got some rescue capabilities over, you know, outdoor capabilities that don't really work that well, and DIY capabilities that aren't all that special. I think the Kershaw Funxion knife is a pretty good idea. Is it perfectly executed? No, probably not. But depending on your needs, it could still be just what you need. There you go, guys. That's my review of the Kershaw Funxion series. I'm the Late Boy Scout. We'll see you guys later.